Okay. So thanks for the introduction. So I'm Yannick Chauvel, as you said, correctly, by the way. And I'm regional PLM for the network automation BU. So I'm also kind of I will be the speaker for the BU, by the way, so today. So what I will present to you is more the pros and cons about if you need to go with a hierarchical controller or not. I have to apologize because at the end of the presentation, I don't think you will have a single answer because there is no single answer because it's more kind of a discussion you will have to have about if it's really needed for you, when do you need this hierarchical controller for different domains, either for service configuration, either as a PC controller or assurance or even for the infrastructure configuration. So during this slide, I'll cover different functions. First thing I will start maybe going through the different architecture and APIs you can go through this hierarchical controller solution globally. And we'll go also about typical solution we see today and how to move to these hierarchical solutions. And while going through the slide, I will also talk about the assurance perspective because it's something can be important because handling services is one thing, but being able to say if your services are behaving correctly in your network, it's also important. So it's something to take in mind when you are talking about hierarchical controller. So while deploying service, making sure that these applications knows about the state of these services. So about APIs, you see there is a big trend to move to kind of a standard APIs. So we have all this IETF standard that is going on. These APIs are exposed either directly by the domain controllers themselves as a northbound API, either for the PC controller, for the service configuration in IP, either for the infrastructure configurations. When it's going into some different domain like optical or microwave, we see that the domain controllers themselves are exposing another API called TAPI. This is, I would say, the standard of the market today. Even there is other ongoing, but we see mostly TAPI nowadays. And for the fault management, we have also, again, this IETF, but we see also mostly exposing directly the events via Kafka bus or any technology like that. And of course, on top of this, above these domain controllers, we'll have this hierarchical controller who will aim to use these APIs because to make this integration easier. And obviously, this hierarchical controller will again expose the same standard APIs for the different orchestration applications you may need on top, like for service enablement or whatever. So what is the objective to move for the customer to move to this hierarchical controller? The first one is is led by an organization called Tipmust, where they are taking a kind of pragmatic use case about service configuration and service handling for the mobile backhaul, for example. And they have defined a kind of architecture. It's called Tipmust. And this architecture is using this hierarchical controller to maybe coordinate different domains, microwave, optical, and IP, or even different IP domains. There is also a driver for the operators themselves because they may have different organizations who used to not talk together or used to not to work together. But due to some organization, maybe due to the 5G deployment, they have to interface or to coordinate themselves to be able to deploy simply the services for the 5G backhaul, for example. Maybe you will have some example where you have some first ring of aggregation team do not talk to the core team. But for 5G, these teams may have to coordinate. That's why maybe a hierarchical controller may be useful for them. Also, another use case we see that is pushing the need to go for hierarchical controller is when you have a kind of legacy network or you have already a solution for doing the network controller, but is very specific to a vendor. And you don't want to get rid of this domain controller or NMS. So here you can use your hierarchical controller to interface with these domains. This is what we'll see. And the other point that is also a trigger to move to a hierarchical controller is about the scaling. Because when you have one domain controller, sometimes this domain controller cannot cope with the scaling you have. Other scaling parameter can be the number of services, the number of net concession you have to handle, or simply when you're talking about PCE, about the multiple domains that the PCE controller have to cope with. And also all these PCE controller can cope with these network issues you may have in the network. So there's different drivers who are leading the operator to think about a hierarchical controller. There's different architecture, and what we see today, this is the one you will see on your left. It's something we see for small to medium customers, so they have a kind of domain controller today. This domain controller can cope with multiple IP domains, so it's sitting above different IP domains. These IP domains can be multi-vendors or can be vendor-specific, but usually it's mainly IP domains. When we see domains between IP and optics, then we see the needs to go for different domain controller, maybe a kind of coordination between. So on the left, we see either you have a domain controller for the PCE, either you have a domain controller for the services, or you can have a single domain controller doing both. That is also possible. On the right, you see another scenario, can be called a kind of hybrid hierarchical controller, when in fact we are using an existing domain controller. The one should be on the left, only in the domain one. And this domain controller can be extended with coordinations capability between itself and the other domain controller for services. It's leading that we can extend existing capability of a domain controller to control another domain controller. It's useful because maybe this specific domain controller is handling a vendor-specific devices that you don't want to pay or maybe invest in order to integrate these third-party devices in this specific controller. Then maybe another use case we see for more large or very large use case customer, when they have already some domain controllers. So on one side, the domain one is covered by one specific domain controller, handling the PC and the services. On the right, you may have another domain controllers doing the same for the IP domains. But you see that you need to do some coordination between these two, domain one and domain two, plus also coordination with the optical domains. And here you need, again, a specific domain controller will do that. And you need something above, and something above will be this hierarchical controller will do the coordination between these different domains. And there is many use cases. Some of the use cases is to make sure that you know about the topology. You can do the cross-domain topology between the IP topology and the optical topology. So you know where your IP link are connected to your optical links. Then you can also make, in that case, you can make some engineering rules. You can also make sure about disjointness. You can make sure that your IP services are using different optical resources. Because without these coordinations, it will happen that, okay, you will configure services between domain A and domain 2, but you don't know about the optical resources used. While if you put an optical domain controller in the middle, which is coordinated, then you will know about these utilizations. And then you can load balance if necessary, this one. Then we go to different functions. We can see a need for a hierarchical controller. So there's different approach. The first approach is without domain controller. This is the existing we see today. So you have two IP domains which are managed by a domain controller. So these two domain controllers are configuring the IGP, the traffic engineering rules, without any coordination between these two domains. So it's easy because this is the way these guys used to do. But you are lacking of coordination. They do not share the same engineering rules. There is no audit capability. You cannot ensure about end-to-end SLA easily in that case. In the second possibility is when you have a kind of, you are using a hierarchical controller who will do the coordination between both domains. So the HCO here will ensure that when you are defining an engineering rule, this one will be applied through the HCO and deployed in the same way on the domain on the right and also on the domain on the left. Of course. So it makes the engineering rules deployment easier, and also you have audit capability from end-to-end perspective that you may not have before. The big questions you may encounter here is about who will do this, who will own this HCO. Is it the one from the domain A on the right or domain on the left? That's a question you have to ask yourself. Another domain we see a need for service for the hierarchical controller is about the service configurations. One of the there is two models again. One of the model is when you have this kind of single HCO handling the service from the end-to-end perspective. That means when you are configuring the service, the HCO will select the endpoint and make the service configuration end-to-end in a kind of flat way. He will just go directly on some domains, configuring the PE, and if he needs to configure a PE on the other domains, he can go through the other domain controller who will act as a kind of proxy. We can think here that maybe the HCO will delegate some actions like the netconf session handling, maybe the topology capability, and the domain controller will just expose an abstracted view on the topology, or at least only the information that are needed on the HCO perspective. The main advantage of this one is that you can deploy very simply the services, and you can take benefit also of this simple service to be able to do this this end-to-end OM testing, for example. Also, in terms of supervision, it's making the life easier because a service is really represented as a single service from the fault management perspective or even service supervision perspective. On the second use case, maybe the life is a bit more complex because here the two domains are independent. It's usually what we see in kind of existing deployment when you have two independent domains who used to deploy their own service. And here you are just using the HCO as a kind of coordinations between two independent domains. So on one hand, you say, please give me a service between in your domains, between the two PEs. And on the other domain, you will say, give me a service between, okay, the two PEs in your domain, but please do a kind of stitching in order to have this end-to-end service capability. At the end, yes, you will have your end-to-end service configured, but it will be a kind of more complex service because it will be a service composed by other services, with a set of services. We used to call this kind of service like a composite service. It's coming with a bit more complexity in terms of service configuration, in terms of service engineering, and also a bit more complexity when you want to do the OM test, because you can already do OM test from service segment by service segment. There's no real capability to do the end-to-end service OM like we can do in the first row. Another domain we see as well is about, it's not my last versions, okay. Another domain we see the need to have a kind of coordination between domains is about the PC side. So what we see we have different scenarios again. So we have the PC who is acting as a single PC controller handling different domains. These solutions come with some added value because it's simple. It's what the RFCs are defining in terms of PC controller. And also it's bringing some capability to do the end-to-end pass establishment and pass control. And you can also easily, I would say, reroute LSPs in case of network issue because it's what is done, the PC is designed for this one. But you can face easily an issue about scaling. The scaling issue will not be about the number of nodes or number of LSPs because it's just data that you will have to store in your database. So you can imagine that you can scale your database as per your wish, but more about the budget you will allow when you will have a network issue. Because when you have a network issue, you have an event. An event could be just an alarm, could be KPIs going above a certain limit, but you will only have few seconds to react because the NSP, the PC controller, is responsible to reroute the LSP. So it will just have few seconds. And this is where the scaling limit is coming out. So you cannot do the job in few seconds if you have to manage millions or millions of LSPs. It can only be possible if you have if it's handling a limited number of LSPs. Again, it depends on the application every time. And the second scenario, it's when you have a kind of controller doing the coordination between two PCs, and then the question is about what you will expose to this hierarchical controller. Will you expose the complete topology? Will you expose all the events? In this scenario, what we are doing, we are just coordinating the two domains. That means each PC, let's call it local PC, will make its own calculations, and the HCO will just make sure that when you are establishing an LSP between these two domains, it will select the best exit router to join the LSPs in this case. Could be a good solution in terms of scaling, but maybe not a good solution because if you let the local PCs making their own calculation, maybe at the end you will not end up to the best LSP path from end-to-end perspective. Because what you have to keep in mind in this, on the slide, just to make it easier to read, we have only two domains. But at the end, you will have 3, 4, 5 domains. So locally, you can make a very simple calculation. Yes, to find the best path between A and B, I can go simply through this path. But maybe there is another path that can be not appear as obvious for the local PC. Okay. And there is, we'll see there's some kind of limited use case support like we see later. Okay. The other possibility is then to expose the complete topology at the HCO levels. This is what we see in terms of RFC today, still on draft. And that's why, okay, it's not yet completely deployed, it's still under definition, this hierarchical capability approach, but it comes with already some issues, and we don't see yet just a solution that is coming. Why we see some solution? Because here, if you are just exposing the complete topology on the HCO, you may also decide to expose also all the network issues you may have. So what is the point to have a hierarchical controller? Because this one will see everything. So you will end up into a kind of scaling issue. So maybe here you will have to find a point where you will need to decide what kind of information you will allow to push to the HCO, which one you don't want to expose, and what kind of information, what kind of action you will accept to delegate to the local PC or not. And typically here, this is where you have to decide about the BGPLS, if you want to let the routers exposing the via BGPLS the complete topology to all PCs, or only to only to the local PCs, or also to the HCO, and also the same about the network issues. Today, the RFCs are going into the direction to expose the network issue to the HCO and let the HCO doing the path calculations. But we do think there is a kind of performance issue here, because that means the HCO, when you have a local issue on one domain, it will have to recalculate the complete path. That may be not the good things to do here in terms of performance capability. So it's my conclusions. Good in time, by the way. So what we see that today we see the needs to move to HCO. That's clear. There is kind of due to the scalability, due to some use case, in order to be able to handle in the easiest way the multi-vendor aspect. Because if you go with instead of going directly to the node, you go via vendor domain specific controller, you can save some integration issue. But it's not an easy decision to take. And one of the key criteria is about who will pay and who will own this hierarchical controller. Because when you have a hierarchical controller sitting on top of different domains, IP, microwave, backhauling guys, core team, so someone needs to take the ownership of this hierarchical controller. So you need to have a kind of horizontal organizations who will take this ownership, not only in terms of technology, but also in terms of who will pay for it, about the use case and so on. So I will leave with you with this question, so about who will pay for this hierarchical controller, and also about the different questions you may ask yourself about what kind of rules you will implement while selecting this hierarchical controller in terms of scalability, in terms of functions you want to use for the HCO or not.
Thank you very much. Jeff, you're standing up because you have a question? Okay, so go for it.
Jeff Sensor, Microsoft. Thanks for the presentation. IETF defined a CTN, which is really hierarchical architecture with all the interfaces. Moreover, we are using the CTN as a reference architecture for network slicing and all new young words that's going on. You didn't mention it once.
No, I mentioned TAPI, but I forget SCTN, you're right.
So what's your view on it?
Sorry?
What do you see on customer side? Are you building a CTN compliant implementation yourself?
CTN, what?
ACTN, RFC 8705, I believe.
No, I don't think, I don't think so. I need to check myself. I don't know. Sorry.